Don't Give Up Show with Jacquie Wayans. Inspiration through word and song for you.
Welcome to another episode of Don't Give Up and Win. I'm your host, Jacquie Wayans, and it is a pleasure being with you as always. It is a blessing today to have my guest. I'm so fortunate that he can be with us. You know, here in America, we often have times when we talk about our judicial system. We talk about the things that are and are not working, but what if you were an American in a foreign country having to stand trial for something you did not do? A very, very different circumstance, and my guest, James Muller, is here today to share with us his experience and how God was able to get him through. Welcome to the show.
It's so good to be here, Jacquie. Thanks for having me.
Oh, it is a wonderful pleasure to finally have you. It was something that was in my heart to have done, and God opened up the door to make it happen. So,
Amen.
Yes, it's a real pleasure. And you're enjoying New York City also while you're here.
New York City is great. The people are fantastic, and the weather is unusual.
Well, this year it has been unusual indeed, but I want to get right into your story. And usually on this show, we start from the past in a way that shows the upward incline to what God has done in someone's life, but yours is a little different. So I want to start with you at that window, that point where you became this successful businessman, but realized that there was something missing.
You know, success is a journey, so as soon as you decide to be a success, you are. But there's one thing that makes success enjoyable and long-lasting, and that, of course, is Jesus Christ.
Yes.
That personhood of Christ will make success permanent. In my career and in my youth, Jesus wasn't number one or two or three or four or five.
Okay.
But success was something I always wanted, and I worked hard towards it. And what I found is, without a real plan, you kind of fail your way to success,
Yeah.
and you fail and you get a little farther.
Yes.
And I was blessed unknowingly. I continued to improve, and as I became an adult and grew up into the business world, I was successful at almost every venture I ever endeavored to do.
Awesome.
And I found it was just because I didn't quit until I reached some kind of success.
Okay.
And I did have the whole world. And as I had the whole world, I then learned about Christ. And what I learned is that if I wanted to enjoy it, because I never really enjoyed it, I enjoyed the battle, but I never enjoyed where I was.
So you enjoyed the winning,
I
you
did.
enjoyed the pursuit, but you weren't enjoying your life.
Yes, life wasn't good. And so the way to make it better was to get more,
Okay.
to be more, to beat somebody else at the game. And you're never going to find happiness that way.
Right.
But I did find Christ.
Yes.
And when Christ came into my life, my business model changed in that I wanted to spend time with Christ. And I went into the ministry. I became an evangelist in South Florida and became very, very passionate
Yes.
about what God did in my life. And people would kind of laugh. Some of my business associates, when I told them what I was going to do, they'd say, "Why would you do that? You already have everything. And what are you giving up?" And I thought about that. I was giving up nothing. Because I found through the secret of hard work that you could always make another dollar. You could always build another business. But what you can't do is find happiness doing it without that relationship.
Absolutely.
And as Christ came in, man, life got great, you know. People were being baptized. Nobody that ever knew me in the past ever listened to a word I said about God until maybe 30 years later.
Wow.
But people were coming along, you know. And while this was happening, I left some of my business entities so that I could do this. More business came into my life.
Wow.
And
So you were just being blessed and expanded
Without
all
an-
the way through.
with so little effort on that part.
And that's the beauty about God. And so you might be listening and wondering and saying, okay, Jacquie, you're starting the show where you usually end. So what's going on here? Well, what's going on is that sometimes there's a little hiccup, or a bubble that burst in our lives that caused us to have to start all over again. And in your case, you had just gotten married, you found the love of your life, you were off on your honeymoon, and then what happens? What is the news that you receive?
Well, here's what happened. First off, before I got the bad news, what happened was I became great. And that's the wrong person who was great in the scenario.
Right, right.
My businesses were successful. I had the most beautiful wife on the planet. This was just way too cool.
Yeah.
And it must be because I was really cool.
You were the man.
I was
You
the
were
man.
Okay.
And I remember now, and I look back at throughout biblical history, when people became the man, they were decimated. And I remember King Nebuchadnezzar said, "Isn't this Babylon that I had built?" And the next day he was eating grass.
Right, right. So what was your grass eating experience?
My grass eating experience was I was charged with murder 12,000 miles away in the Kingdom of Thailand while I was on my honeymoon in Costa Rica. And I was privileged to become the first American in history to be arrested by the U.S. government and extradited to a foreign country to face the death penalty.
I'm going to stop you right there. I'm
Yes.
going to stop right there because when we come back, I want to get into what that looked like, how he was able to keep his sanity, and ultimately how God was able to bring him out when we come back.
I mean, I was just a kid. And you never knew what mood he was gonna be in when he came home. It was brutal. My dad, he would come home and there's one time where
Good job, bring it back. Chad wasn't a football player per se. He was just a kid that needed to be a part of something. I don't think he had anyone as a role model or someone showing him what to do. It's okay, you're doing good. You're okay.
Coach Marr was the only person I really trusted in this town. You know, he was always there.
And I'm so proud of you. You've done well. Done well.
Don't you give up now. Don't you give up now.
Welcome back to Don't Give Up and Win. That focus and win sometimes is harder to do than other times. And our guest just explained to us that he was accused of charges of murder, nonetheless, in Thailand, and as American citizen had to face trial there. And if you would recall, some of you might have seen the episode a few weeks ago with a guest who was saying to us that he met someone in prison who shared with him that he'd rather be a prisoner in America than free in his own country. James, talk to us about what you think that person might have been alluding to. What was it that you experienced once you walked into this system of incarceration in Thailand?
Before I got to Thailand, I had to spend time in the U.S. prison to prepare to be sent.
All right.
And I thought it was terrifying and horrible. When I got to Thailand, I realized it was really like a hotel suite in comparison.
Right, right.
You can't imagine the horror coming from a Western civilized country to an Eastern country that has never civilized their judicial or their prison system. It's the same as it was 900 years ago, with a few differences. And those differences weren't improvements. They were just more advanced ways to torture you or to hurt you. The people were fine, the staff were fine, but the system of punishment is not incarceration, it's punishment. On a daily basis, you will be punished, either by working, enslavement, being open to the elements, having no electricity, having no toilets, having no opportunity to communicate with the outside, There's no separation of violent prisoners from nonviolent prisoners, and there is no protection for those who are nonviolent.
Okay,
Disease is rampant.
Show me what I would see if I was, am I looking at a building holding cells? I mean, what am I looking at?
You're looking at cells. The buildings themselves are cages. They're cells. And there are cells inside the cells. There are no walls.
All right.
The ceilings are tin. There's concrete floor. When it rains, the rain comes in on you.
Okay.
When the mosquitoes come in the midst of the monsoon season, they
Right.
come in on you.
Okay.
There's no protection from the elements. There's not one bed in the facility. You'll see up to 10,000 men sleeping on concrete floors, virtually out in the open. And I say this to let you know it's a terrifying thing to come from here and see that.
Yeah.
To them, it's normal.
Wow.
They understand in those countries what they're going to face.
Right.
And they have no hope to ever change it. In our country, if we were to treat prisoners like that, the jailers themselves would be imprisoned. When you step out of line, and stepping out of line can just be looking the wrong way.
Right.
Somebody will beat you with a stick, and they'll beat you with sticks that have rubber bands on the end. They make a huge ball on the end of the stick. And it sounds silly, they hit you with a rubber band, but the rubber band is about 5 kilos. It's huge. It will break your bones.
Really?
They used rubber bands so it doesn't generally break the skin or leave bruises. But if they want to hurt you, they'll crack your ribs. And in my case, they cracked my back.
Oh, okay. So let's pause for a second. I mean, what the guest may be seeing here is this. Let me not fail to mention that James is an author, and this is his account of his experience. And even as great as this book is, it is still a nominal account. I think a movie needs to be made, but it's called I Cannot Fail. And one of the moments that you talk about there is when you first get there and the routine that they put the prisoners through. And
amazing.
there was a moment where you actually were expected to say prayers to and bow down to. Talk about that.
In the morning, you're brought out for the morning count, and you are in a parking lot, basically. It's a concrete lot in the middle of a Southeast Asian jungle, and the national anthem plays, and everybody stands and sings the national anthem.
Okay, their national anthem,
Yes, of
of
course.
course.
Of course. Afterwards, there's a monk who will pray Buddhist prayers. And there's a 15-foot golden statue of Buddha, and everybody will bow down to the statue. And the monk will pray a prayer with you chanting along that your case would go well, that you ask the king and Buddha to forgive you, and your day would be great. And they are quite insistent that you participate.
Right.
And of course, as a Christian, I wouldn't, and there were some Islamic prisoners in there who wouldn't.
Okay.
But they are quite insistent, and those sticks come into play. So what I and a couple of others would do is we would sit down with everybody else, but we'd just turn our back
Okay.
and not participate.
Okay.
And they
what
would
was the
come and just
consequence?
start beating you around the head and shoulders
Oh,
with those
boy.
sticks.
Yeah.
And I knew from the beginning that if I were to even pretend, I couldn't expect God to be with me in there. I wouldn't deny Christ
Right.
when I needed him the most.
Yes.
And they knew from the beginning that I wasn't going to cooperate.
Okay.
And after a few days of it, they just walked away and gave up.
Amen.
And I recall the 3 Hebrew boys who had a similar experience, and of course they went all the way into the fire.
Right. Right.
And
Well, you did too, in a certain
Well-
way. You know, you just mentioned about breaking your back.
Sure,
You didn't break your back because you fell.
that's right.
How did you break your back?
This is the first time I've told this in public,
Oh my.
and I wasn't allowed to tell it in there, or I would never got out.
Right.
But during one moment of extortion, I didn't have cash available for the officer who wanted it. So he had his henchmen come in to collect it, and what they did was wait till I was asleep. and just came into that cell and beat me with those sticks. And what the physician said, the surgeon, he said it looked like they just knocked 3 vertebrae out with that big rubber ball. And the moral of the story is pay the money if you have it,
Gosh.
because I
Yeah.
didn't.
Yeah.
But the end result was the most fantastic healing and the most fantastic surgery
I know, I'm looking
out
at
in
you.
the middle of nowhere.
You're standing here, moving, walking. You came into the set today, and I'm like, you do not look like the person who's been through this experience. And we haven't even scratched the surface, because that actually happened after you received a verdict from the judge of being not guilty, correct?
Exactly.
Yes.
I
But
was-
in their system, they don't have to let you go.
The thing is that in the United States, not guilty by a jury of your peers is done. In the rest of the world, you're presumed guilty, not innocent like we have here, that privilege. So since you're presumed guilty, if you were to win in a trial, the prosecutor would appeal. Here, if you're convicted, you can appeal the conviction. There, if you win, the opposition can appeal the conviction.
And it's their livelihood, so it can go on and on and on.
And it takes years.
Wow.
There's people who win their cases and still die in prison.
Wow. That's
The
so
rest of the
sad.
world has a different justice system. When we complain here, sometimes we don't realize, yes, we need to improve,
Right.
but we are not the worst by far.
Right. Wow. You know, our time is going so rapidly. I want to just make it clear that while you were in that cage, even with a broken back, even with torrential rains coming in and floods and all kinds of situations, I did a radio show with you, and we go into deeper depths into what you really experienced in that moment. But the beauty of this is to know that God was with him even in that crisis and even in that pain. And one of the things he said to himself every single day was, I cannot fail, based on the word of God. So when we come back, we'll find out exactly how that came to be.
I already knew that I was going to go to college, from a young age. I definitely want to major in political science. After that, I'm going to get my law degree. Then I'm going to come back to Detroit, boost the economy, become the mayor or something, try to make the situation better for other people. I feel like I owe it to the city. I'm determined. It's going to happen. My name is Justin, and I am your dividend.
Don't you give up now. Don't you give up now.
And we're back with our guest, James Muller, who's been telling us a really fantastic history and account of his time in a Thai prison. And we realize that there's so much that goes on beyond the borders of where we live in this nation. And when we hear about those who are being persecuted for their faith, we really have to have an idea of what the circumstances are that they are facing. And I'm so glad that James has been able to share from the heart with us today. But now we're going to come to an upswing, so to speak. You said something pretty profound in the book that I wanted to share. I'm going to have you, close us out with how you were able to come through this. As I said, the judge did find you innocent, but you still spent another 9 years in jail and finally had to appeal to the king in order to get your freedom. And thankfully, your loving family were there advocating with you along the way. But before we get to how that story ended, I wanted to read this because not all of us will experience an actual physical prison. We might know people who experience that, but not everyone's going to experience that. But all of us will experience a prison of the mind of some sort. And you wrote in your book, and you said, it's the prison of the unfocused and uncommitted mind. And that intrigued me because I believe there's truth here, and I just wanted you to clarify and bring to light what you meant when you said that.
Throughout the entire time I was in Thailand, I knew I was going home, period. Everybody else knew I was going to be shot, and that was the end result, was a firing squad. That's focus. That's commitment. Throughout the period, there was a lot of opportunity to change my mind, to make side deals, to forget who I served. In life, we all have that. We have a commitment and we have a focus available to us to succeed at and to overcome any obstacle and succeed at any endeavor. What happens in prison, what happens in the jail of the unfocused and uncommitted mind is the same. We lose hope. We become tired of the battle. We lose the vision of where we're going. And I really think that prison is an unfocused and an uncommitted mind. So many men and so many women have been in prison and came out great. And so many others who've never experienced the bars were in prison of their own mind and failed at life and ended up miserable and unhappy. And so what is the difference? It's not the bars, and it's not the lack of bars. It's the lack of commitment to where we want to go, and it's the lack of focus on staying in it till we get there. And what I've found is any person that doesn't quit on their dream has no choice but to achieve their dream. And that's what a focused and committed mind will do. Around the world, I've met a lot of people who quit. I never met one failure. And I think that the committed mind and that focus on finishing the job will bring you exactly where you need to be. And if you could imagine, when Jesus said that prayer, Father, if you can, take it away. But isn't this why I came?
Right.
When are you going to quit? I'm not. He didn't.
And that was because he had a vision of what the end game was.
Absolutely.
And you kept the vision all the way through. And likewise, we have to have a vision, first of all, and then keep that vision before us, and that will keep us free in our minds so that we can pursue. I love it.
Now's time for the Don't Give Up and Win takeaway moment.
This show is actually designed for those who have a dream or a goal that they're reaching for while pushing away life's challenges. Don't believe that anyone that you see on any type of a platform, that they're there without challenges. We all have them. We're all just pushing away and moving through, but you can do that successfully through the power and the grace of God.
Okay, so what would you bring to my company?
What do you need?
I need problem-solving skills.
I got through high school without a car, a phone, or a computer.
No college degree, though.
Not yet, but life's taught me a lot, and I'm ready for more.
Well, you're not the typical kind of candidate that I hire. But you are exactly what I'm looking for.
Your company could be missing out on the candidates it needs most. Learn how to find a great pool of untapped talent at gradsoflife.org.
I mean, I was just a kid. And you never knew what mood he was gonna be in when he came home. It was brutal. My dad, he would come home, and there's one time where...
Good job, bring it back. Chad wasn't a football player per se. He was just a kid that needed to be a part of something. I don't think he had anyone as a role model or someone showing him what to do. It's okay, you're doing good. You're okay.
Coach Muller was the only person I really trusted in this town. You know, he was always there.
And I'm so proud of you. You've done well. Done well.
Don't you give up now. Don't you give up now.
Before we end today, just talk to us about that final moment of freedom when you knew you were going home to your family.
You could never know that feeling. The Bible tells us that when a man or woman is born again to Christ, all of heaven celebrates.
Yes.
And I used to think that's kind of cool.
Yeah, yeah.
But I will tell you that the day before I walked out of there, I was dead to everybody. Nobody thought I would win.
Right.
Nobody thought I'd come out.
Yeah.
Everybody knew I was guilty. Everybody knew I'd be executed. I was gone. And then with those few words, I was born again.
Yes.
And if you could imagine the thrill. And I thought, what must heaven think, right?
Yeah.
Because I'm just this little guy.
Yeah.
I knew Christ was bringing me out. I didn't doubt it. I didn't know when, but I knew it would be tomorrow, one tomorrow, so sooner or later.
Right.
But I was born. I was like alive. And I knew, wow, I'm going to get a bath. I'm going to brush my teeth. I'm going to eat food. I'm going to hug my kids. It's funny, I thought about going to a dentist before hugging my wife, but it's because she's so lovely. Yeah.
You went to kiss her with the best
Right,
possible
right.
smile. I got it.
But it was the most magnificent thrill. And it makes me think, what is Christ going to do? How's he going to feel that day when he comes? And millions of people are born again. What kind of party is this going to be? And I would challenge everybody to join us in that party.
Yeah,
and you can start now.
yeah.
You can be born again now.
Oh, boy.
You can have it now.
I love it.
And then join us all at the end.
I love it. Thank you for being my guest. I could feel the passion and the joy of what you're sharing. This is the book, I Cannot Fail. You want to get a copy. You want to read this account for yourself. And in the midst of it, it's not just him sharing his account. He's also sharing what he's learned along the way. Until next time, I want you to go ahead and be your very own best hero, because the greatest hero of all said you are worth it when he gave his life for you on the cross. Don't give up. Win.
It's not over until God says so. Don't you give up now. Don't you give up now. Darker days are just for your door. Don't you give up now. Don't you give up now.
Don't Give Up Show with Jacquie Wayans. Inspiration through word and song for
I'm
you.
Jacquie Wayans of Don't Give Up and Win. Tune in every Thursday at 5 a.m. to get your motivation to start your day and pursue your dream.